Yo, 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 what's up, guys? Welcome back to TWE Charts. AMC inside the POI. Here we go. All right, so we are about to enter what normally becomes the start of the volatility. So volatility event in the cycle here is 13 days long, and it ranges from the beginning to the peak of the cycle. That's where we track and normally have volatility on AMC. No, it doesn't. It's not guaranteed that volatility happens inside this window, but when it does, the correlation is 5 for 6. I say this every time in the entire AMC chart from January of 2020 or November of 2020 to now. So 5 for 6. That's pretty good to me. The one time where it didn't happen in the volatility zone, and you can see right here, it happens on the red portion, was in the after-hour session, July 21st, where the price and the algorithm said no, shut it down, came back into sync, and that's how we know that this right here was just, it was a pump and dump, and the algorithm picked back up and did things how it normally does them. So in this case, we have the 14th being that where it normally starts to climb up, and AMC's chart is starting to look good, right? We're respecting support, and right now we're still creating higher lows, which is good. It's just very stagnant. It's trading sideways, but it's still showing trajectories pointing up, which is good. Now, here is the thing, right? Macro accumulation is still at play. It still looks good. This almost looks like it's a wedge forming, right? But it's also kind of looks like a double bottom a little bit. Now, we're still expecting to hit that 950 range if this volatility zone is positive. Otherwise, we see a break below. But that is not the case right now. Again, we're following this slight but still upward movement, creating higher lows. And I compared this section here to what happened in October, right, where the price created an inverse arc formation and then popped on the POI right here. So what do we have projected here in the next few days? Well, a few things, guys. This setup right now is one of the patterns that we have on the Discord. There's 6 patterns that we track. And in these, the unique thing about these 6 patterns is that they have volatility events in the end of their phase, their little cycle. So one of the patterns is called an M-shaped pattern, and it looks like this, right? So normally one would say, yo, this is a flag, right? The difference is with flags, they just narrow down to the point where one would expect a break. The problem with this is that, I believe these institutions know that, people are either tracking upside or downside then, but the nature of these patterns is that, well, they come with fake outs, right? Because the markets are built that way, is that there's constant fake outs that have traders second-guessing themselves, right? So with this M-shaped pattern that we see happen a lot in the markets, there's 2 fake outs. There's a fake out to the upside, and there's a fake out to the downside. Once that's established and ready to go, the price normally experiences volatility in the end of that pattern. Now, here's an example of a bearish one. So this is AMC. It looks bullish, right? But here's an example of a bearish one. We have Nikola. Okay, Nikola recently had developed a, whoops. What is going on here? Okay, I'm on the 5-minute, that's why. Okay, so Nikola had recently developed this pattern. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. There's your M, and then here's your volatility zone. It breaks down. Okay, there's a lot of examples of this breaking up. Okay, here's another one. Okay, 1, 2, 3, breaks up. Okay, and then it breaks down. But the important thing here is that this is a short-term pattern, and the volatility event happens quickly. And if it's, in this case, if it chooses upside and it goes up quickly, well, we'd be expecting it to hit resistance, not only being that we're in the volatility zone, but this is the descending trend line that we're tracking, right? And the previous patterns we talked about, okay, we took patterns from 2018. We're tracking we're tracking a lot of patterns right now that are calling for this to play out here, where it's just coming back up to retest resistance and then potentially, retest some levels of support after that happens. I personally don't believe that this is going to be the break, because I still think that we're in macro accumulation. And macro accumulation, unless you're in a spring, okay, there's one stock right now we're tracking that's in a spring, okay, then things tend to happen quickly. But when price trades sideways for so long, that normally is an indication that you are in accumulation, and it takes a little bit of time for things to develop. So it doesn't change the macro thesis that we're expected to climb sometime in February, because that's the next POI. But for now, there's still momentum and opportunity for AMC to climb up, retest resistance levels, trade sideways for a little bit, and then climb back up. So here's the outlook, guys, because there was a video I posted 2 weeks ago talking about the macro outlook on AMC and what a potential squeeze scenario would look like if all this came true, right? So far, everything's tracking, right? We're trading sideways in this range. And right now, the next step is for AMC to climb up, reach 950, climb back down, and then here, potentially, we'll see if the price holds. If it doesn't hold, this is where it can become a spring, right? And if it becomes a spring at the, $4.50 or $5 range, then that should be the last time we see a low on AMC. Otherwise, we're going to see a full break on this POI, and things are going to start climbing up quickly. You get your ripple effect, and then things continue to rise. All right, so here are two of the patterns I'm tracking right now. One of the more recent ones we started tracking was Bitcoin. Okay, this is Bitcoin in 2018. And right now, Bitcoin 2018 is looking pretty good. But you can see here on this structure, again, guys, watch this. What did Bitcoin do in 2018? It had the same thing. It had a fake out volatility event like AMC, and then the price dumped like crazy. And it didn't go up right away. It took some time. It was accumulating. Well, what's the difference between this current pattern and AMC's? Well, AMC already broke and created new lows. It's just a different version of accumulation, but ultimately it's going to potentially do the same thing, right? If everything holds, if AMC starts to climb back up, it should do something similar. Now, with this chart, if we line it up 1-to-1, we can see that on the POI here, it actually breaks down. This would be the bearish scenario on AMC, but considering that AMC has already created new lows, it's one of the things that we didn't see happen on the Bitcoin pattern, had already done that here in the beginning. Well, that to me just shows that some of the other patterns might be better candidates because, also based on the structure, we have AMC right here in I believe this is 2018 as well. And here is the difference, right? So with this pattern, looks like this. You see this break below, right? Again, could be the possibility. This could be a possibility. But you can see here it comes up 3 times before it breaks below. So if we're using this pattern on the daily chart, it comes up and it retests this resistance trend line 3 times before it breaks down. So we have our 1, we have our 2, and then this would be our 3 before we see some downside and potentially that spring that we're seeing here. Guys, again, look at this. 1, 2, 3. And on that spring, this thing breaks up very quickly. So a few things, guys. So in the market right now, because you got to track the markets, let's take this out here. Actually, before I get to the markets, let's talk about the levels indicator real quick. So I got to go back, give you this boring chart, because you can't see the levels, man. Otherwise, you can't see the levels. Okay, levels, very good at smoothing things out. Also showing you overbought and oversold territories. Okay, here's the hourly chart. And we can see right now, AMC is just riding that 4th level, getting ready to potentially break. If it breaks this, the levels I'm tracking right now, and we did see some nice volume in the last 5 minutes, so that was good. but we need to break 715. Once we do that and head on over to that 775, things are going to look a lot better for AMC in the short term. Okay, let's check one. Now, the markets right now, why I like the markets for AMC. So you always got to track the overall markets. I know that the markets have that influence, man. We have that influence from the market. So here's the thing about the markets right now. They are trending up. Here's the levels indicator again. And we are just seeing oversold territory. Like, this thing is not even like, we're not creating short oversold territory levels. Like, this thing is just riding up, getting ready to break. It already broke resistance right here, short term, and it's going on to break basically that 480 range. Now, do I think that's going to happen in the short term? I don't think it's going to happen this year. But I think we're going to get somewhere in this volume up here before we get a break. There's two things I'm tracking on SPY right now that kind of confirm this a little bit here. But, guys, we're a lot closer than we are to breaking highs than we are to coming back and retesting lows. And typically when you have a V reversal in the markets, you don't just stop, almost get to it and stop. There might be a breather in between, but normally what happens is you get onto that high. You got to consider that 500 is also a psychological level. And once it breaks that psychological level, you're going to get a lot of shorts piling in here. Okay? And that's not where it stops. Like, typically you get a continuation before you start to see new lows again. So this is just already bullish as it looks. We have a V reversal on the micro and a V reversal on the macro. Now watch this. Here is an indicator. Okay, it's called change. It measures the rate of change. And if we take a look at the current levels, all right, this thing goes from -9 to +12. Okay, the only other time I've seen this happen not the only other time, there's been a few instances, but the one that I think is very relevant to track right now is back in October, right here, October of 2020. Look at what the chart does. Okay, so we have a V reversal right here. It needs to climb back up. We get into oversold territory, and look at what happens. Because we've experienced so much volatility in the markets, this thing just wants to ride up. It wants to ride on that first wave for a little while before deciding to break down or continuing the trend up. The markets they're not consistently experiencing volatility. We've had a lot of volatility in the recent years. And there's going to come a point where the markets are just going to trail up. And that's essentially what we're waiting for right now. Now, because we haven't crossed resistance yet, this isn't going to happen right away. But if we take this pattern for reference, okay, from the moment it comes down, here it's going to be October 26th. And then take it all the way up here. I just want to show you guys what this looks like over here. The same structure, the same percentage levels we can see here. This thing is just trailing up before it breaks down. So if it does something like this and crosses 500 going into next year, okay, I think right here, it's not going to happen this slow. This is an effect you would probably get in the markets after it crosses 500 and then breaks down a little bit and trades sideways. There's still a little bit of volatility to come. But the overall trajectory, guys, once you break that level, it should just be a steady climb up. Now, going into it here on the POI, which is February, that's where I'm expecting AMC to do its thing. That is where we start to see some downside on this pattern. So that's what we call a POI, because patterns normally behave in a similar fashion. This thing can come up, do something similar, but when you see a heavy drop or a heavy push up, normally that's good correlation to track for potential upside or downside. So we can see right here there is a drop, and I agree with this. I think that if SPY started to climb up and crossed 480, it would potentially come close to 500, drop, and then continue to rise up, cross 500 again. This is where you experience heavy volatility next year, and then things settle down for good and start climbing up. So what does that mean for AMC? What happens every time, guys, we experience volatility on AMC? Well, let's check it out. Let's bring SPY over. Okay, this is what happens with the meme plays. We got SPY right here. We got AMC on the bottom. And we got a vertical line right here. So every time the SPY is getting ready to take some kind of breather, we've experienced volatility on AMC. So March 2022, markets pump first, AMC's kind of trading sideways, and then boom. On the peak, the markets start dumping. What happens in August, right? We go to August, same thing. Markets are ready to come down. AMC pumps like crazy. It takes about a week. The markets have been doing this already, right? They've been trending up. And then we can go all the way through here. The markets took a shift in direction. So when the markets are accumulating, sometimes you don't see it happen the same way as just stocks in general. I think stocks accumulate a lot differently than the overall markets. Markets are very weird, and they have their volatility events, but they look very different when you're looking at blue chips and looking at mid-cap or small-cap stocks. So an accumulation period for AMC can look like this while the markets are fully pumping here. And one thing we need to track is we'll track the peak on the markets, which also happens to line up with the next POI in February. And that is why I'm expecting AMC to climb up a hefty bit that time, because if the markets are going to come down, that's going to give AMC the opportunity here. And I just don't see the markets coming down right now. So if the markets are going to keep pumping up here in the short term, that should bring enough pressure to bring AMC to that 950 range before they take a small breather and get ready to pop in February. But until then, guys, that's the correlation I have right now and why I believe things are going to happen the way they are. But as you guys know, we update things on the daily here as they come. And right now, that is the projection. But anything can change in the market. So, do your DD at the end, man. This is just another perspective, another outlook here in the way that we've seen AMC do her thing before. And yeah, man, I hope you guys liked this video. That's it for me today. Alrighty. Make sure you guys subscribe and you like. And if you want to check out more of these other plays, click the link below and it'll take you to the Discord. All right, guys.